All right, welcome everybody. Tonight's talk is with Tommy Ka. I'm Kimberly Datchik, the Curator of Learning and Engagement here at the Stanley Museum of Art. On the screen, you'll see the University of Iowa Land Acknowledgement. It recognizes that the land we're on right now used to belong to other people, belonging to many different indigenous tribes. They and their ancestors had lived here for thousands of years before European and American settlers arrived. As settlers arrived, they took land away from the indigenous people. We are working to make up for the wrongs done in the past in the way we reach out to indigenous communities and work with them. These communities have a long, rich history, and they continue to thrive in Iowa today. Please join me for a moment of reflection as I read the University of Iowa Land Acknowledgement. The University of Iowa is located on the homelands of the Ojibwe, Anishinaabe, Chippewa, Bohoji, Iowa, Chickapew, Kickapoo, Ometmanewak, Menominee, Miamia, Miami, Natuchi, Missouri, Omaha, Omaha, Wazaji, Osage, Jiware, Oto, Ottawa, Ottawa, Ponca, Ponca, Potawatomi, Neshnabay, Potawatomi, Meskwaki, Namahaki, Sakawaki, Sac and Fox, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, Sioux, Sanish, Nubaka, Nueta, 3 affiliated tribes, and Ho-Chunk Winnebago nations. The following tribal nations: Omaha, Omaha Tribe of Nebraska and Iowa, Ponca, Ponca Tribe of Nebraska, Meskwaki, Sac and Fox of the Mississippi and Iowa, and Ho-Chunk Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska nations, continue to thrive in the state of Iowa, and we continue to acknowledge them. As an academic institution, it is our responsibility to acknowledge the sovereignty and traditional territories of these tribal nations and the treaties that were used to remove these tribal nations and the histories of dispossession that have allowed for the growth of this institution since 1847. Consistent with the university's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, understanding the historical and current experiences of our Native peoples will help inform the work we do collectively as a university to engage in building relationships through academic scholarship, collaborative partnerships, community service, enrollment, and retention efforts, acknowledging our past, our present, and future Native nations. Thank you for taking time to reflect with me. The Land Acknowledgement is a small but important step in recognizing the histories and contributions of Native peoples. We continue this work through our programming, exhibitions, and collecting practices. We are thrilled to have Tommy Ka here to discuss his work. Last year, the museum acquired 2 of his photographs, one of which, Take 17, Cordova, Tennessee, from 2021, you can see in the galleries right now. Tommy brings curiosity and care to the people he photographs. His rich photographs record the complexity of identity, relationships, and family history. Though specific to his experiences, they offer viewers many opportunities for connection. And more than that, they're really fun to look at. Tommy is the recipient of the Next Award, Foam Talent, Creators Lab Photo Fund, NYSCA, NYAFA Photo Fellow, and most recently a CPW Vision Award honoree. He holds an MFA in photography from Yale University, and he is an absolute delight. Tonight's program is a collaboration between the Stanley Museum of Art and the School of Art and Art History. Thank you to Talas Arash for bringing this opportunity to partnership with us. Tonight's talk is the first of 3 events over Thursday and Friday. We'll begin tonight's program with Tommy's artist talk. Then Diana Tweet, our senior visiting curator of modern and contemporary art, will join Tommy for a conversation up here about his work, after which we invite you to join us in the galleries to see Tommy's photograph and chat with Tommy and Diana. We also encourage you to attend the conversation hour with Tommy Ka tomorrow at 11:30. And the self-imaging workshop from 1 to 4 p.m. These are both at the Atrium of Art Building West. The programs presented over the next 2 days are made possible by the University of Iowa School of Art and Art History's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. So thank you for them for their sponsorship of this. And now, Tommy Ka.
This is gonna be a real fun show. A lot of things being in my hands right now, so I hope I do a good job. Thank you to the Stanley Museum, everybody that has been involved in getting me here. I really appreciate it. I love that I try to be prepared to say people's names, but that escapes me right now. I'm so sorry, but yeah, Kimberly, Diana, Talasa, and thank you so much for bringing me here and reuniting with one of my longtime friends and cohort, Tamika TJ, who's in attendance. Love you. It's such a great reunion this year, so I'm gonna get started. Can everyone hear me okay? Yay, good nod. I was told to not start at the most recent thing, but I don't like to be told what to do, so I'm going to start with the most recent thing I've been working on. It's actually my friend Emmy, who is underneath the mask in the picture that's hanging upstairs, and this is her. Meeting for the first time in 2021, and just as a great example of finding people that are in conversation with me without actually knowing them at all. And Emmy is a retired accountant and has been doing her own research and doing these short documentaries of the Chinese Memphians that have lived in the South for a really long time. So it's just kind of amazing to meet other people in different mediums that are thinking along the same lines, and I just love to continue that conversation. So Emmy's been one of my muses for this work that I'll get into. Yeah. A lot of my work is probably going to talk about how to photograph invisibility, especially how history has not really account for our beings. For example, Emmy, through her research, found the first instance of a Chinese settler in Memphis, because the city of Memphis never took a census of settlers coming through the city. They were never recorded properly, and she found this ad in the Commercial Appeal, our local newspaper, for a laundromat business on Bill Street from 1873. So that is how we know well, we couldn't explain how they got there, but I like to point back to this picture of the East and West joining the last spike, joining the United States from the East and West through the transatlantic railroads that is known for the sepia picture in the background. A lot of stories that came out of it is pushing the Chinese laborers and other laborers that worked on the railroads out of the photograph, and as a really prime example of like how do you photograph invisibility when history doesn't account for it. The color photograph is by Corky Lee, who passed away a few years ago, is known to be this Chinese street photographer. I'm from Yale University, or studied at the Yale University MFA program, which is founded by Walker Evans, who is a master of street photography. So Corky Lee, gathered the descendants of the laborers and did the picture and like for the 145th, because the numbers is right there. So I don't have to do the math. Yay. And I like to kind of start with this kind of picture by Sandy Skoglund, because this is the first like photograph I saw in a museum through a field trip in Memphis. It was hanging in the Brooks Museum. This is the photograph that made me realize that I could be a photographer. Well, not this kind of photographer, but that I could make my own kinds of pictures, whatever that was. I was 14. I was really idealistic back then, but I really was changed by seeing this large photograph hanging on the wall. A lot of it has to do with, I introduced this picture because of the blues remind me of the first memory I had, because I was told that we're informed by the first thing that we remember, and I remember being 2 years old, and the first thing I remember in my life was riding in the back of a motorbike in Vietnam right after the sunset, because after the sunset, this nice blue kind of cast over the landscape, and this is the blue that reminds me of that memory. And there's more of an anecdote too. I came up with a book through Aperture last year called Half Full Quarter. Yes, because I definitely know the title of my book. And this pretty much starts the beginning of the book. It's not the first photograph, but I want to start with it because it's a photograph of my mother. I've been making pictures with my mom and my family members, those who do not walk out of the room when I walk in, because they know the deal. Like, oh, I'm coming in to make pictures. My family has an agreement where they will leave the room if they don't feel like being photographed that day. But about 5-6 years in, my mom gifted me this pink photo album, and it was filled with these amazing pictures. This is one of them. I just love this kind of Louise Bourgeois, the mother as a creation story, the origin of a genesis of storytelling, of narrative. She's reading pattern drafting, and sewing has such a intrinsic value for us as crafty people. And I was really struck by these pictures. I did not know about these photographs. There's no negatives. There are no negatives, and they're just as mysterious because my mom never explained them to me either. She just kind of does that Asian parent thing where it's like, here, I'm not going to explain this. Do what you will with it. So I just been really scanning and archiving and putting them alongside my work, just to see the differences in generation of how photography is treated by immigrants. I'm a child of immigrants. My mom fled Vietnam in 1984 or 1983, several years after the fall of Saigon. So my family stayed. My mom was forced to do indoctrination camps under the communist regime, and eventually fled in 1983, and then she made these pictures just briefly for a year. And I love that these are representative of how immigrant parents don't really look at photography as art. It's more of a document, and it's more of a pictures of celebration, of survival, and things that you kind of put in a shoebox to, and then, you know, locked in a closet for years and not explain those pictures. So we never really had photographs hanging on the wall either. I put these two pictures together. This one I made in grad school, and it is just this. I did not know about this picture, and then just trying to make this picture for a different reason, and thinking about the self and other not being or being the same side of the same coin, and trying to make these new interesting pictures that didn't involve my body being in front of it. But I love this kind of echo that comes with photography as an act of time travel. Photography is an act of time travel for me. These things of the past that I think it is one day it will be possible to make pictures that are about the present and about the future. But I love that the photographs act as these portals to the past, and how much of the past continues to reverberate in our contemporary landscape. So a lot of these things kind of came back up into my current work years later. This is one of the pictures that has gotten me in trouble in recent years, and I kind of hate it just because of the conversations around it. But you can see I do work with all kinds of camera. At the time I was working with a 4x5, and a lot of things I was doing is not photoshopping. I rather am more interested in the performance. When you point a camera to yourself, like, we immediately kind of know what to do by now. We kind of do a slight pose or are aware. We do something in reaction to a camera pointing at us. This is me as a cardboard cutout in an Elvis outfit, which has raised some eyebrows through TSA, because, you know, I'm allowed one personal item. So this is switching a little bit back to the earlier collaboration came out of my grad school work. My mom started to help me realize some pictures without really understanding what I was doing. I mostly was crying on the floors, like, why did I do this? Why did I pick photography of all things? And my mom was just like, you know, try to work these things out, and sometimes you just don't have the answer to things that you're trying to say. So let's just try to form the answer, and then we asked a question. So this is one of our many instances in using the prop of the shutter cable release as a stand-in for the authorship, for the photographer being the author of this picture. But the joke's on us, because that shutter cable is on top of the couch. It's not attached to the camera, and my mom's squeezing the cord the whole time, but it's actually the camera's on the self-timer. So yeah, there's no author for this picture, technically. And a lot of the things that I'm really interested in how to photograph myself without actually photographing myself. And I was also kind of doing a reaction to a lot of comments of like my work wasn't queer enough, it wasn't gay enough, it wasn't Asian enough, it wasn't American enough, it wasn't Southern enough. And I was just like, you know what? What if I just put my face on queer bodies or Asian bodies? Would that make it more? So this is one of my very many volunteer friends of muses that I've worked with over the years. I still use the same cast of people, not as a continuous rotating cast, but it is something I like to check back on and not I guess in a way of Susan Sontag saying that photography is an inventory of our mortality, but it's also about my other friends as well, to acknowledge their spaces and their contributions. Because I think that collaboration has always existed at the beginning of the history of photography for me, because there's multiple people, draftmen, opticians, printmakers, chemists that were doing something, and I love that there was an embedded collaborative community already with photography, and so it kind of goes right into showing more of my mom's relationship to this project, because she does show up in other bodies of work, because I think for our bodies we're kind of like palimpsest, like the landscape, like the body, that we tend to paint over it to add new text on top, and then just to start that cycle over again. And for me, I think it's photography is about that kind of echo. It's not simply about copying. It's not simply about replicating. It's not just about time. It's not just about memory. So I kind of like the idea of time traveling with these, and how much of the things kind of loop back onto itself. Things that I really did just weirdly discovered, this is an example. This came right after I was in lockdown and just doing research of what we can do at the time. And someone on Reddit posted this like fun tidbit about the first cardboard generated imagery, CGI, first CGI. I kind of spoiled that. But anyway, Bruce Lee died before finishing the filming of Game of Death. And so what they did was had an extra just sit behind a cardboard cutout of his face. I was already doing the cardboard cutouts a long time before this, and so I love to point this as an example of just not a coincidence, but how things kind of tend to echo continuously. I think photography plays so well. It is going to play, but we don't have to watch it. But there's like kind of like, there's him, we don't have to worry about the volume, it's like him, and then you just kind of see this blatant it's just this. I guess we're just watching it. I'm sorry. It's such an interesting scene. So dialogue's not important, but it's just this kind of way of to access this sort of stand-in, this sort of realism and attachment to death in photography, and the flatness of using photography to make these stand-ins, these props, these surrogates for others. This is a really long clip, as it turns out, so this is called a diversionary tactic, so if I'm just it sounds like I'm prolonging, but I'm not sure how to fast forward into this, so this is also a good example of checking your homework before going up in front of the class, but it's coming up right now.
Getting a little late. Well, sitting right there by the telephone.
Oh my gosh. This is such a long clip. So the lead up was really good about this. Just not knowing about that, and how I continue to kind of change the material of the props continuously, mostly because I was thinking of Reka Rissinger. She was at Yale, also made her own self-portraits of herself as a cardboard cutout, so I kind of had to wait for a while, just because I felt like I didn't want to feel like I'm ripping her off in any way, and I wasn't sure how to pay homage to her. And so it was just simply quickly, early on, it was suggested to work with mask. So it goes from cardboard to mask in that kind of order until it's not linear anymore, which kind of makes sense with photography. It can be chronological, but it doesn't have to be linear. And also, this is a great example of what happens when you work with family, because you could just be minding your own business and waiting for the subway, and you turn around and your mom is like judging you from behind on a digital billboard ad. So this did happen. That was very shocking for me. I'm like, hey, cool. I don't know if I like this anymore, but it's nice to like to see a familiar face. Um, and just thinking about how much photography can be this print on the wall, and I'm more interested in how an image can be seen in different ways from a screen to what is possible. I was thinking a lot about photographs in a souvenir shop, the gift shop, like because I visit a lot of gift shops, and I was thinking a lot about puzzles, and I made a picture of my mom, and then I made a picture of myself in a similar composition a year later, and then turned it into two puzzle sets, and where our bodies met is where I swapped out the tiles. And this is also a great example of like when I realized like, oh no, I look like my mom. And then I laughed and it's like, oh no, I sound like her too. It's like, which part of me is this? Oh, and a really good one. This is like, we don't really need the volume for this, but if you guys kind of know this movie, I was looking at other ways to continue outside of photography and this kind of image, and thinking about the DVD scenes where they cut out an extra character, but that didn't had any made any sense to the plot. And I was working with a Hollywood screenwriter, and we're just like having fun shooting this on an iPhone, by the way, and just inserting myself into existing narratives. So, just put your arm back the way that it is, and then, you guys know the scene. And it's really just this video that really makes me so giddy about just just to not do something so grandiose, but to really, this is like a $30 green screen that fell on me immediately, and this is like maybe took 10 seconds because the reason it fell on me was a hailstorm like happened. No matter what I do, I just don't end up at my own representation. But I kind of love that about photography. Not the failure of it, but the kind of magic that does happen. Like, I don't Photoshop. I really rely on the spontaneity, or the things that I can plan so much, thinking about the composition, sketching it, or writing down ideas that I think would be nice, and then really trying to to be surprised by my own work, and thinking about cutouts and other forms like gay cosplayers and superhero costumes, thinking of costume as a form of the cutout. And this picture with my mom, and kind of not a straightforward strategy I was using before, but really the same things about mask, and mixing different Asian styles of Vietnamese fans, Japanese face mask, and a really weird Chinese outfit that was sold to me by Amazon. And like, still don't know how that happened. And it was like before Amazon got really weird. So I ended up making this kind of picture just to blend that kind of ambiguous space for myself, and yeah. Emmy underneath the mask, and just really casting this kind of net, because I do believe that photography is this visual language, and language is a communal activity, and you need more than one person for us to get accents, dialects, and slang. And for me to make these kinds of pictures is really trying to cast this net to find other people that speak the same dialogue as me. And yeah, I think I have the last two. I think that was hitting the time. I'm not sure. I could prolong this too, but I do have a tendency to overrun. So I am going to end it with some two recent examples of looping back. This was done for the 2023 first Tennessee Triennial, and I was really just humble, grateful to have this space. Especially, it was really crazy how I proposed it, and was like, well, I guess I can like put a bunch of pictures of the sky. I had no idea what I was doing. Well, I just made these pictures of the clouds, and I guess I can make a photo mosaic of an eyeball, and we just stick it on the ceiling. And the Brooks Museum was like, yeah, let's do that. It's like, do you want more information? Like, okay, well, let's do this. And I really was excited to do this kind of installation, combining a lot of the vinyl stickers I was using, making new kinds of photographs, like making pictures on fleece, on dye sublimation on fleece, and just really kind of flexing these new threads. And I really want to point to like the where it says the brooks outside with the E cutoff is where I saw the Sandy Skogland Revenge of the Goldfish. So it's not planned that way, but sometimes life is really interesting. And to add it further, my first teaching job was at Rutgers Newark, and I met Sandy Skogland, and we're gonna have lunch in like our annual spring lunch in a few weeks. So I'm really excited to have that connection with her. But I think I'll stop there and then invite Diana up here. Right? Is that enough time? I'm sorry if it was too short or too long. I'm not sure. But yeah, thank you. Thanks everyone for being here.
Yes, thank you on this lovely evening. We have a full house, so we're grateful for all of you in the way back. Thank you, Tommy, for the next few days, which I think will be very rich for everyone. And we had a little bit of time to chat, but I thought one place to start would be your book. Yes. Actually, and this is not a plug, but it is beautiful, and I encourage everyone to take a look. And I'm thinking about the title, which you stumbled over in a way that I sometimes do, because it's half, full, quarter, and it's sort of more about how it sounds in your mouth, yes, almost, than the order, yeah, of things. And I also was thinking about how it circles back to early photography and daguerreotype plates, and if that was something you also wanted in there.
Yeah, I think it was such a funny way trying to organize the book. I think we were like, I think we could put in 4 projects. I think that should be enough to tell a kind of sampling. And we weren't interested in trying to make a book that was specifically about a certain project. I think Leslie knew enough about me that everything I do is a continuous long body of work, no matter how much it's compartmentalized, or doing kissing, or making pictures of a cardboard cutout self, or photographing my family. And yeah, I do describe like the pictures of my mom as these half cell portraits, because I am a cutout. We are cutouts of our parents. And that kind of half full quarter was an attempt for us to kind of put catalog and categorize the pictures, the projects, which already had names already, but we thought it was more fun to kind of hint towards, I guess, the phase of the moon, but also the half stop, full quarter, or full stop, quarter stop, and things like that that's related to the photographic language without having to be specific. But there is a bit of a translation and a mistranslation in the back with the text and trying to catalog. So I love that there was an intentional typo, because I forgot to review the text, but it actually worked out, because I love the idea of mistranslations, because it still worked. But I really like that there is a bit of dialogue with photographic history, because I think it's so important to look at, and how we view ourselves, and it kind of hints of where we should go in the future.
And I actually, that makes me think too about how many words you contribute to the book. And I think, you've said that you like your images to fall apart at the seams, which
Yes.
is one of those great phrases. And, language really feels like it is a part of your practice. Like you kind of wrap it around the images. I think about things like contronyms, which are words that contain 2 oppositional definitions. So Bethany Collins made me think about contronyms.
Bethany,
So
yeah.
something like clip, which would be you attach something to, or you snip something off. I know, it's a great cleave, clip. So I think about contronyms. I think about oxymoron, your first book, which we looked at, A Real Imitation. And I wonder how much you're thinking about the words when you're thinking about your images.
Oh gosh, I really feel like I made such an effort when Aperture's like, oh, you gotta write some stuff, like, what? please don't make me write. It's not that impressive. And the trade-off was to really, if I could bring in these ancillary materials I collect, like I've used a notepad, I use the notes on my phone, and a sketchbook to collect things that were really loose. Maybe in an Eva Raspini, Danny Gordon kind of essay way, ecstasy of influence. But it really, the book process was really nice to kind of bridge all of that information together. But I don't think I have that way with words, or I can have the way with pictures. And I like to think I could speak in pictures more than the text. But I like the idea of translation and mistranslations a lot. I love that, like cryptonym or what was it? Contronym.
Contronym.
Contronyms.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. The more you know, that little shooting stars going back behind my head. But I don't know. I always think of like Ocean Vuong, who's been such a great friend to talk to, who is so amazing with words. And I like echoing his sentiment of like starting with words and ending with art. So I'm trying to start with pictures and end with beauty or something to that effect. Because I'm not as like impressive with words like that. But I try to bring that in a lot in trying to find these dialects and slangs that, you know, maybe there are a few people that can really are doing the similar kind of thing on their own neck of the woods. So,
And I think, you know, I guess I hear you use a number of words again and again, in ways that they continue to sort of accrue dimensionality. And so one of those is fragmentation.
Yes.
And, you know, you've said that the through line is fragmentation, which I love, because of course then the thing connecting things is this shared condition of fracture. And so thinking about the book and thinking about your mother's photography, I wonder how does your work relate to her work? How did she, when you said she brought you the photographs 5 or 6 years into your working in photography, what precipitated that too?
Man, I have no idea why she thought it to gift it to me, and she did it in a weird way. Like she has my address in New York, but she sent it to my sister in California to give to me when I was visiting. It's like, that's the strangest way. Oh wow, these pictures are really shocking. Like there were no negatives or any context other than like Canada 1983, but it was crossed out to 1984 just to give it a time. But I love that kind of fragmentation to experience that of the world, because I think a lot of us are always seeking the past as a way to inform ourselves, and I think that we're not as complete. And I think I always stressed about community and collaboration as an important way forward as contemporary artists, especially young artists, to not only prop each other up, but something that has always existed in the beginnings of the history of photography. It's never just one person. I really don't like the idea of like it's always credit to one person when there's so many brilliant people that are often overlooked. And I love the idea that I'm only very specific in self-portraiture, maybe queer, Asian, Southern context, but I like that there are other people who are also working in self-portraiture, also working in different mediums, but also asking the same questions, and that they are looking at my work, or we're looking at each other's work, and we're living in the same landscape, and they just have this other piece of the puzzle that I would not have. And so I really love the idea that my pictures I could see them as incomplete, and even starting to cut up my pictures, even using collage as a through line to make the props. And now I'm making collages really, I mean, I made collages for the book, which was supposed to replace the text too. On top of that, it's like, I'll make other stuff if you don't make me write, please. That sort of worked. But yeah, I try to, I don't know, not kind of position my mom's work in any way, but just to really have it as a contrast to our relationship. I'm to photography because like I'm raised in the U.S. I'm probably next to my cousin has a doctorate degree. I'm like the second person to have a highest degree in my family, to attend an Ivy League, to attend these things that my family could never experience because of war, and because they had to experience war, they had other concerns. Like photography for them was just this document to have, this record, and some of it was just made to be hidden away. They didn't really display pictures, unlike me, that I'm full on display everywhere. Oh God.
I think that's a great transition to something you said earlier that makes me think about picture making and temporality. And, I had been thinking in relationship to another project about the theorist Jose Esteban Munoz and his points about, queerness being outside of straight time, that there's a forward-facing futurity that it, fulfills that condition. And so you said earlier, one day maybe there'll be photography that lives in the present or the future. And so I'm wondering if you could sort of tie that together, elaborate a little bit.
Oh man, I really hope to open that space for other people because I think I'm really I don't know. I hope that my work evolves into that regard where I can see pictures not just of the past because they're literally just of the past, but it does make me feel hopeful about what pictures can be because I think we're very, at least like I teach, so I have a lot of students that feel like things get repeated, that they're not making anything original, and it's really about the collapse of all that and that they are a summary of everything that came before them, and hopefully that it allows them to make the kind of work. Like I want to be like at least an educator that like you're allowed to make that kind of work and let's talk about that. Like when do we have time to talk about difficult subject matter? When do we have time to talk about anything at all without it being about praise and like liking things until the cows come home? I'm like, we have that already, but I really want to provide that space. And yeah, I think if people could figure out a way to travel into the future or take pictures of the future, I would love that. And I think those are happening, and I want to leave room for them to, because I think it's just wonderful that there's so much space that needs to be filled. And I think it's important to have institutions like Stanley to really show and have these spaces of for artists that we just, there's so much room for us, and it's not about taking away anything but just to be able to make more room for people at the table. And I feel like photography education really ties into that.
And what do you make of the fact that your work is now, it's entering museum collections, it's entering conversations that maybe it was not a part of? How do we think about where it fits, or maybe preserve the kind of out of placeness that is so important to you?
Man, I mean, I can talk personally about it. Just on a personal level, it still surprises me, it still strikes me, maybe in a way that I just never imagined that my work would be in a museum, to be looked at all. And it still surprises me that, oh, I showed my work to your students, like that's really amazing. I'm like, I also show your work too, and like, but I'm too, I don't know. I love that I'm in the genre of photography of imaging, self-imaging, and then that's like the more recognizable part of me, and I kind of regret that, just because it just, oh no, I really like to hide sometimes, but I think it's just so, I'm really grateful, and I just don't know if my words are enough to express how important it is, but I really want to extend that that feeling for my friends and colleagues who aren't being looked at, and I really want to recognize that it is possible, and to hopefully extend that and stress the importance of having these spaces for all of us and not just for myself. And it's like, it's not about me, it's about other people around me that have like been in front of my lens, that also help raise me back home, and just I want to make sure that they are also given the same opportunity, and I'm still trying to figure that out from how to do that through the workshops I put on over the years that are free, and to just pointing out to organizations that are doing more work than I could ever do, and to just make sure that they are named, to make sure that they are with me in some aspect, because we can't do everything by ourselves on our own, and it does take community, and just that I want to paint a more optimistic future for us, and the things that are not available for younger artists is like that just means that we get to choose our paths and get to choose like what we could do, because why imitate something that is no longer available to us for that are that has benefited older artists, and I'm grateful for the spaces that they did give us, but there's so much more work to be done. And I think the work is never done, so I'm hoping to not at least be one of those artists that's in the way. So at the very least, that's what I can try to do.
And what may be in this sort of vein of looking for yourself elsewhere, like in collaborations, in in other bodies and in other spaces, what's something that you've learned about yourself, either how you work or just yourself as a person through this?
Well, I definitely had my mom's laugh. It's been real fun to live with that for a while, but I kind of love the idea of people having, especially my family, have this kind of information I wouldn't otherwise glean of myself. And I don't know, I feel like there's a lot of learning curves for me to really make it, I don't know, democratic or at least accessible. And I think there's a lot of earlier work that I look at and want to be embarrassed by because there's so much shortcomings, and I want to allow that conversation to happen. At the very least, like learning to not be defensive and learning not to be to over explain or just like, no, that's not what you see. It's like, no, I want to talk about this. I actually do see this. And to immediately not have that reaction to be like defensive. I see that a lot, even with my students now. It's just like, that's not my intentions. Like, well, your intentions are truthful in what you did. And then we're seeing this other kind because, this is where we're coming from. Let's talk about this more without it being an argumentative state where people talk over each other. I don't think art needs that. The world is full of that already, and I think there's a bit of solace, a bit of like playing ground for everyone to have that conversation without having to be superior or inferior to each other. It's just like what connects us is this art.
Well, and it sounds like it's a way of resisting the linear, right? There's you kind of create a simultaneity of your early work and your present work, and you're sort of living with all of that.
Yeah, I love that linear just because you made that quote earlier by Jose. Is like, oh, but another example of people taking the same lines is Caffrey Park Hong through Minor Feelings. Such a great book. Even quoted Catherine Bond Stockton that the queer child grew up sideways because everything was like really in comparison to a heterosexual straight life of like dating, relationships, marriage, babies, starting that cycle, and a lot of queer people, and they even made the comparison of art. People of color growing up in a similar way of like it's always sideways, it's always this kind of non-linear way, and I love that because photography is chronological, but it doesn't need to be read linear, and I love that kind of side glances and the way that they even describe like even a side view denotes or connotates different things of suspicion even, and
it's also a way of making something a fragment, right? Like a sidelong glance is a way of making something peripheral and partial. And
John Edmonds talks about it. Ami Lay, oh god, they talk way better than actually. Let's just get John and Ami up here. I'm like, they know more than I do about this, but yeah.
Well, I have a couple, just a few more questions, and we'll hold some about that work since we'll go upstairs and take a look at it.
I could switch it too. Let's get switch.
Yeah, we could switch it to another one. Not the clip that will distract everyone again.
It's like Leonardo.
So I was thinking about, and again, you sort of set this question up earlier, but the ways you attend to how otherness is constructed visually, how people other and are othered, and the sort of reverse of that being belonging, and what belonging can be as much of a performance. So does it have a place in your work, or how would you say, like, what does it look like photographically? Like, is there someone else's work maybe that comes to mind?
Yeah, I mean, apart from Reika, I think of a lot of Luigi Giri, and yeah, I love that this is also flexing, like, well, this is why you have a 1 credit shy of an art history minor. I know I made that joke, but this is really true. It's like, I like to always try to name a third thing, but I always forget the third thing. Haha, and I love that I went on a tangent. Because I got off that train of thought too early. Say that question one more time.
It was about belonging.
Belonging. Yeah, I think I'm really past like trying to find this utopic resolve in my work. It just leads me for more questions or ways to rephrase the questions I've always had. Even Gregory Crutzen talks about that. We're really essentially asking the same question, no matter what different bodies of work that we're working on. It's like, yeah, and pretty much it's that way for me. And so I'm less interested in like trying to make things seamless or like together in my work. I think that's why I refuse to Photoshop. It's not to correct or try to composite something. I'm like, I could do that in front of the camera easily, and I like the idea that the cutout is this sort of that's where it can point to. Often my body is the thing that's out of place in the picture, and I love that. I love that the magic or the reality just falls apart there. And I feel like that's just the realness, the kind of maybe not capital T truth in art, that I'm not really interested in that either, but I'm really interested in just what is so playful possible with very little editing for it. It's just everything is done for the camera, and just inviting like that space for people, and hopefully that they want to enter.
How do you know when the image requires your body, when you belong?
Well, I made a lot of test shots, and that's really interesting. It's weird because I just don't think I'm ever settled on an image. That's why the kind of cutouts, no matter if it's cardboard, it's a different cardboard almost each time. I think they have a shelf life of 2 pictures. Once I saw my cardboard cutout blew away into the oceans, like, and it's after the second shot, it's like, well, I guess that's gonna set me up for life. It just sank in the ocean. It was really fun to see, actually.
Did you take photos as it was?
Well, it was really windy, and it was like, well, I don't want to take pictures of like me littering in the ocean. I'm so sorry. They said to campground rules, so leave it better than you found it. It's like whoops. It's like, hopefully a school of fish can enjoy that on the ocean.
Well, that brings me to maybe thinking about the spaces where you show and present your work, and how you think about it spatially, because in some of the shows, I saw your show at Baxter Street, which was wonderful, and the ways that you wrap corners. There was a work that was on the floor, the ways that wrapping and folding translate into the gutter of the book, for example. So they're not precious. They become kind of spatial, environmental. So I wonder if you could say a little bit about what that has looked like, what you might yet do in that regard. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sky's the limit.
No, I really thank you for that. I mean, it's such a I was asked this last week, and I only half answered it in a way of trying to thank Natalie Karg, who's like the first gallery in New York at all that was like, how much is it? I'll pay for that. It's like, which didn't end up happening, but it was like, that was awfully kind of you, and it was the first time to feel supported by an institution. It's like 2021, and I didn't have a studio space, so a lot of things were really in my head, and just the trust that I built, not through people I photographed, but it kind of carried through with working with curators and writers and people interested in working with me. And so the Baxter Street was a culmination of all those things and a lot of trust. I'm like, this is going to sound nuts. It did to them. It's like, maybe we'll just keep it simple when we're explaining it to the board of directors before we having to explain this before the pictures are on the wall. I was like, yeah, that's a good idea. But it was the folded pictures I started a while ago, just because I wanted to take up if I wanted to see if it was possible for me to be in two places at once. And I think of my pictures, the prints, to be an extension of my body in a Wolfgang Tillmans way, which is why we don't see his pictures pinned or pricked. They're really cared for in the way they're hung. And I really thought I was onto something until I was showing in Europe in 2019. They were like, we were already doing this for years. I'm like, well, I haven't seen it in the States. So, so I think it was a nice flex to collapse, especially with the Baxter Street. My love of commercial printing, which was represented by the UV stickers, the UV vinyl stickers that were folded into a corner, taking up 2 walls, to the little 4x5 prints in the photo corners were chemical prints, actually. And then the frame pictures were made digitally, pigment prints that really collapsed a nice history of photographic printing. And then the floor piece was like a dye sublimation on fleece, which we kept calling a photo blanket. It's like, it's better than a photo blanket, I swear. But I keep reducing it to, it's a photo blanket, but it's really a dye sublimation on fleece. Let's just try to give it more respect to that. But it was it also had bubblegrams, like see-through glass crystal blocks of black and white pictures from my family album, and showing there was a secret installation in the stairwell. There's a lot of things going on in that show. Did you hear the music for that on that?
I don't think so.
Oh, you'll hear it tomorrow.
I missed the secret.
Yeah, there was sometimes a soundtrack of my DNA being played, interpreted by 2 of my musician friends, so you can hear a kind of weird soundtrack too. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Okay, well, I think I will just set us up maybe to move upstairs, because I have thought a lot about how your work fit into our collection, bringing it in. And, you know, the Stanley sort of inaugural that we're in the midst of is called Homecoming, and the sub exhibition where your print hangs is Generations. So these are all, you're just destined really to be part of this. And, you know, I love the conversations that you participate in upstairs, as we'll see. So you're alongside a photograph from 1939 by the Farm Security Administration photographer Arthur Siegel. And it's an aerial photograph, just all of the heads of Chrysler auto workers striking. And, you know, it's the self is really subsumed by the crowd. And we never see crowds in your work, really, that I can think of.
Working on it.
Okay. But it's also, you know, there's a dualism to the image. It's one where it's sort of a pictorialization of solidarity, but maybe also there's, you know, it's shaded by the suggestion of the depersonalization of labor under capitalism. So it's you know, there's a lot of tension there. And you're alongside a Grant Wood painting of Mel Blumberg, the son of a local Jewish family who Grant Wood casts as this all-American boy, alongside a bust by Simone Lee, which made you swoon, I believe.
I swooned so much. Simone's so cool. I mean, I fanboy over a lot of artists, so I'm such a lucky duck.
Well, and rounding out the corner, you have a self-portrait by Graciela Iturbide, which is her in the adornment of the indigenous Seri people of the Sonoran Desert. And so that is this sort of like moment upstairs where ancestral forms are are really present. And, you know, I think that was what I had to say, and we can probably just take the rest of the conversation upstairs to talk more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay? Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.